Let us start with a short invocation to the Supreme God, to the Great Divine Father, Great Divine Mother. Thank you for your priceless blessings, for your divine light, divine love, divine power, divine healing, guidance, mercy, help, and protection. We thank you. To our spiritual teacher, to all the spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great ones, we very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. To the great Swami Rama, and to all his great teachers, we extremely humbly thank you. To the great Babaji, we thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. It is, by the way, said that the teacher of Swami Rama, I think at a certain phase of his life was Babaji. It was said that Babaji requested or mentioned to Swami Rama to go and meditate in a cave for about many months to about a year or so. So you remember the previous book that we read was also Babaji's book, like the technique of Kriya Yoga was also given by Babaji, right? Let's go ahead. All right. Where were we? When one sits in the mornings and evenings on the top of the mountains, he can see beauty all around. If he is a spiritual man, he can understand how this beauty is an inseparable aspect of the Lord, whose attributes are Satyam, Shivam, and Sundaram, the truth, the eternity, and the beauty. It's almost like Sat, the Chit, and the Ananda, feels like that, right? Sometimes जैसे कि सत चित और जब अनंत हो वो आनंद का फैक्टर होता है तो चित्त जो है मतलब आपको लगेगा कि ना इट कैन मीन अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स पॉसिबली इटर्निटी seems to be a similar meaning, not exactly the same maybe. This is the land of devas. In the Himalayas, dawn, Usha, and twilight Sandhya, when the day weds the night, are not mere moments created by the rotation of the earth, but have a deep symbolic meaning. Morning, afternoon, evening, and night each have their own beauty, which no language can ever describe. Many times, many times a day, the mountains change their colors because the sun is at the surface of these mountains. In the morning, they are silvery. At noon, they are golden. And in the evening, they look red. I thought that my own mother was dressing to please me in different colored saris. Do I have vocabulary to explain this beauty through the language of the lips? It is only the language of the heart in which I can speak. But the words do not roll down through my lips. तो बेसिकली क्या है ना कि मतलब माउंटेन्स के जब कलर्स चेंज होते हैं तो इनका जो पोएटिक परसेप्शन है जो कवि का जो परसेप्शन है वो जाग जाता है एंड देन ही इज एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई कि नेचर की ब्यूटी अलग अलग तरीके से बाहर आती है एंड इट्स वेरी गुड आई थिंक जो हम भी पढ़ रहे हैं I can give you only a glimpse of these beautiful mountains. Their beauty is splendid and beyond description. The morning environment in the Himalayas is so calm and serene that it leads an aspirant spontaneously to silence. This is why the people of the Himalayas become meditators. Nature strengthened the schools of meditation. When I lived in my cave, Usha, dawn, holding, see, when I lived in my cave, ये वाला टाइम था शायद जबकि वो वहां पे स्ट्रॉन्ग मेडिटेशन कर रहे थे उस टाइम की बात है when I lived in my cave Usha, which is a dawn, holding the rising sun in her palm would awaken me every morning as though my mother were standing before me. The rays of the sun penetrated gently through the entrance. In the cave there lived several yogis studying the wisdom of Upanishads at the feet of the master. Wow. This is a Shivling which is towering between Gangotri and Gomukh. Wow. You know the actual meaning of Shivling, right? For example, Ling is the male generative organ And Shiv is the creator and the destroyer aspect, or the Revan aspect, right? When you say Shivling, you actually see it as like a male organ mating with a female organ. Like the entire Shivling perhaps looks like that. That's my I guess as per what I see. And that is very revered, a subject, or say an object. It is a great symbol of something. Now, what that something is, we'll try to understand as we go along. But I'd like you to, मतलब मुझे अच्छा लगेगा कि आप अगर सोचें कि एक शिवलिंग जो है, which is probably an act of not actually sex, क्या बोलते हैं, मतलब मेल एंड फीमेल ऑर्गन्स जब मीट करते हैं, जो उसका जो प्रोसेस है, उसकी हम जो इतनी पूजा करते हैं, क्रिएशन जो जिसको बोलते हैं, उसके कितने लेयर्स ऑफ मीनिंग होंगे एक्चुअली. आई वुड लाइक यू टू थिंक ऑन दीज लाइन्स. मतलब तो इन्हें इससे बहुत चीज़ समझ में आएंगी कि हमारे कहाँ कहाँ पे हमारी थिंकिंग को अपग्रेड होने की ज़रूरत है. मतलब बहुत बार जो सिंबल्स होते हैं, वो केवल हमको समझाने के लिए उस तरीके से बनाई जाती हैं. उसकी उस सिंबल में इनहेरेंट वैल्यू जो होती है वो कॉन्सेप्चुअल होती है. पसंद में नहीं है. अगर हम लोगों के पास फॉर वट एवर रीजन ह्यूमन बींग्स के पास जनरेटिव ऑर्गन्स कुछ अलग शेप में होते हैं, तो वो जो शिवलिंग होता है वो एक अलग शेप, उस शेप का होता है हम जिससे समझ पाते हैं, न कि अभी वाले शेप का होता. तो शेप में उतनी पावर नहीं है जितनी की शेप जो सिंबल को रिप्रेजेंट कर रहा है, जिस कॉन्सेप्ट को रिप्रेजेंट कर रहा है, उसकी होती है. राइट. सो सोचिएगा इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा कि और क्या क्या इसका मतलब हो सकता है. दैट विल कम टू यू. In the evening, when the weather clears and the sun breaks through the clouds, it seems as though the mighty painter were pouring out millions of colors on the snowy peaks, creating paintings which could never be duplicated by the brushes and colors of the tiny fingers of the artists. Any art that exists in Tibet, China, India, Persia has some influence of the Himalayan beauty on it. A few times I too tried to paint, but I stopped using my brushes because my paintings seemed to be more mere scribbles drawn by a child. Beauty remains bound within the limitations of human realms. If it is not appreciated heartily, when one becomes aware of the higher level of beauty which projects itself through nature, he becomes a true artist. When an artist becomes aware of that fountain from which arises all beauty, then instead of painting, he starts composing poems. The brush and the colors do not have access to that finest level of consciousness. Spiritual beauty needs to be expressed on increasingly deeper and more subtle levels. कितना अच्छे से बताया उन्होंने यहाँ पे कि जैसे जैसे इंसान इवॉल्व करता जाता है, जैसे जैसे उसकी कॉन्शियसनेस ऊपर जाती जाती है, वो लिटरली उसके लिए पेंटिंग माध्यम बन जाता है अपने आप को एक्सप्रेस करना, या फिर उस ट्रू ब्यूटी को एक्सप्रेस करना जो कि नेचर से एक्सप्रेस होती है. Again, the most ancient travelers of the Himalayas are the clouds, which roll gently from the Bay of Bengal. Rising from the ocean, these monsoon clouds travel towards the snowy peaks of the Himalayas, hug them, and return roaring to the plains, laden with pure snowy waters. They shower their blessings and bestow them upon the soil of India. Kalidasa, a great Sanskrit poet known as the Shakespeare of the East, composed many poems about the clouds. Meghdut is a solitary example of an excellent collection of these poems. In these poems, Kalidas used the clouds as messengers to deliver his message to his beloved, who was captive in the Himalayas. The Ramayana and Mahabharata, famous Indian epics, are full of praises describing pilgrimages to the Himalayas. Even modern poets of Hindi and Urdu, like Prasad and Iqbal, could not resist composing poems on the Himalayan beauty. Many Sanskrit poems, such as Mahima Stotra, are sung as though a traveler were going up and coming down from the Himalayas. I also used to compose poems and sing, although I was not a good poet or singer. देखो ये भी बोल रहे कि अगर मैं उनमें अच्छा नहीं भी था ना, पोएट्री लिखने में, ये गाने में, मैं तब भी गाया करता था, मैं तब भी पोएम्स को लिखा करता था. The classical music of India borrowed ragas like Pahadi Rag from the melodious tunes sung by the girls from the top of the mountains. The Himalayas remain replete with mysteries of poets, artists, musicians, and travelers, but they reveal their most important message only to those who are prepared. Mystics alone can unveil the real secrets of these wondrous mountains. I used to roam in the positive. तो बेसिकली देखो ना, एक बात बहुत थोड़ी सोचने वाली बात ये है. शिवा इज कॉल्ड द क्रिएटर, राइट? मतलब उनके पास एक क्रिएटिव एस्पेक्ट भी है. द एस्पेक्ट ऑफ क्रिएटिव या क्रिएटिविटी. पेंटिंग्स करना क्रिएशन का काम होता है. पोएम बनाना भी क्रिएशन का काम होता है, राइट? क्रिएटिविटी का काम होता है, क्रिएटिव एस्पेक्ट का काम होता है. और यू हैव द क्लाउड्स जो कि एक क्षण में क्रिएट हो जाते हैं, अगले क्षण में डिस्ट्रॉय. मतलब वो शेप जो है, जो आप देख रहे हो, वो मोमेंट्री शेप है. उसमें क्रिएशन डिस्ट्रक्शन दोनों को दोनों साथ साथ में चल रहे हैं एक्चुअली, राइट? नाउ इस तरह के जो भी एग्जाम्पल्स यहाँ पे दिए जा रहे हैं कि जो है, जैसे कि इन्होंने रामायण महाभारत के, और वो अलग अलग जो मेघदूत के, फिर कालिदास की पोइट्री के, उन्होंने सबने क्लाउड्स की जो है मतलब काफी तारीफ इन जनरल की है, राइट? अब देखो कि शिवलिंग या जो हिमालयास जो है, वो एक तरीके से देखा जाए, शिवलिंग की बात नहीं कर रहा, वो मैं जो एक फोटोग्राफर थी उसकी बात कर रहा हूँ. हिमालयास जो है एक तरीके से देखा जाए तो वो अर्थ का, पूरी की पूरी अर्थ का एक स्पेसिफिक चक्र को रिप्रेजेंट करता है. वहां पे एक स्पेसिफिक एनर्जी लोकेटेड है हिमालयन रीजन में, ठीक है? सो दिस हैज टू बी a mix of English and Hindi. It can't मतलब it is ideally a Hindi session, so I'll have to speak more Hindi when it comes to explanations. तो उन माउंटेन्स में एक स्पेसिफिक एनर्जी रूटेड है, या मतलब एंकर्ड है वहां पे, जो कि वैराग्य उत्पन्न करती है. वैराग्य का मतलब होता है डी अटैचमेंट, समथिंग लाइक दैट. इसलिए वहां जब आप जाते हो तो इट फॉल्स वेरी नेचुरल टू यू टू गिव अप द वर्ल्डली चीजें एंड सेंट सेंट यू टेक सेंटहुड इन. क्योंकि वो एनर्जी वहाँ पे बहुत स्ट्रांगली एंकर्ड है. इसलिए ये बता रहे हैं कि उस रीजन के आसपास जितने भी लोग मतलब रहते हैं हिमालयस के आसपास, दे मोस्टली दे वांट टू बिकम सेंट्स और योगीज, राइट? सो विच एक्चुअली मेक्स लॉजिकल सेंस एक्चुअली. अगर आप एक सर्टेन एनर्जी फील्ड के पास में रहोगे तो उसका इन्फ्लुएंस आपके पास सबसे ज्यादा होगा कंपेयर टू एनीवेयर एल्स. आजकल एक बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग एनर्जी फील्ड है, वो है इंस्टाग्राम की, फेसबुक की, सोशल मीडिया की एक्चुअली, राइट? तो क्योंकि हम उस फील्ड के अंदर हैं, टीवी के अंदर हैं, तो इट्स वेरी हार्ड टू थिंक आउट ऑफ द बॉक्स इन जनरल ऑल्सो. इसलिए कोई भी स्पिरिचुअल टीचर आते हैं वो हमें ये एडवाइस करते हैं कि प्लीज अपना मेडिटेशन प्रैक्टिस को चालू रखो. डेली मेडिटेट फॉर अबाउट 20 मिनट्स और 30 मिनट्स, पर रोज करो उसको. आप कोई भी प्रैक्टिस करो, पर रेगुलरली उसको प्रैक्टिस करो, और धीरे धीरे करके ओवर पीरियड ऑफ फ्यू ईयर्स अपनी प्रैक्टिस को बढ़ाओ, उसकी इंटेंसिटी को और तेज करो, ताकि ये जो आप आपके आसपास ये जो एनर्जी फील्ड्स है, आपकी एनर्जी फील्ड उससे बहुत ज्यादा स्ट्रांग हो जाए और ये आपको इन्फ्लुएंस ही ना कर पाए। एक्चुअली देयर इज अ मिसमैच ऑफ वाइब्रेशन, कंप्लीट मिसमैच। मतलब अगर आज की डेट में सोशल मीडिया कंटेंट और न्यूज की जो है अगर वाइब्रेशन इतनी है और आपको उसने नीचे खींच के रखा हुआ है, तो जब आप रेगुलरली अपने मेडिटेशन को प्रैक्टिस करोगे, रेगुलरली करोगे ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, वो आपको इतना ऊपर लेके लगेगा कि आपका ये चीजें मतलब क्या बोलते हैं ना, they can't bring you down because the consciousness would soar so high. और इसलिए I think it's a very useful thing to regularly practice meditation, very regularly, very useful also, by the way. Yeah, let's go in. I used to roam in the mountains with my pet bear, who was very loyal to me. He was fond of me and became very possessive. He wouldn't hurt anyone, but would knock down anyone who came near me. I called him Bhola, and he was my finest companion during those days. For 11 years, he lived near my cave and would always wait for me to come out. My master did not approve of my growing attachment to this pet and used to tease me, calling me a bear charmer. In the morning, carrying a long staff to help me in climbing, I would go to the mountain tops, which were 4 to 6 miles from my cave. I had my diary, a few pencils, and the bear भोला with me. इनके पास एक बियर था, भोला नाम का। उसके साथ साथ ही मतलब वो हिमालय में घूमते फिरते रहते रहे ना, उसके साथ साथ रहते रहे। तो जब वो अपने मास्टर के पास होते रहे तो भोला केव के बाहर वेट किया करता था। After the 15th of September, it starts snowing in the Himalayas, but I continued my long walks to the nearby mountain tops, singing the hymns of the Divine Mother. Occasionally, the thought would flash in my mind that my life belongs to those who follow our tradition. I did not care for my individuality, but was acutely conscious of the tradition of the sages which I followed. Even though I broke the discipline many times and became rebellious, I was still forgiven. During those days, many profound psychological and spiritual experiences occurred. Sometimes I felt like a king, but without any burden of the crown on my head. Not having human company or communication brought me great peace and serenity. I realized that nature is very peaceful. She disturbs only those who disturb themselves. कितना अच्छा बोला. Nature is very peaceful. She disturbs only those who disturb themselves. But she teaches wisdom to those who admire and appreciate her beauty. This is especially true in the Himalayas. याद है आपको, हम जब लास्ट टाइम एक बुक पढ़ रहे थे जिसका के नाम था ऑटोबायोग्राफी ऑफ योगी, उसमें हमने ये पढ़ा था कि स्वामी श्री युक्तेश्वर जी थे, जब उनके स्टूडेंट मुकुंदा पूछते हैं कि मुझे हिमालय जाना है, वो बोलते हैं कि तुम क्या करोगे हिमालय में जाके, मुझे वहां जाके मैं मतलब केव में मेडिटेशन करनी है। तो वो बोलते थे कि देखो, तुम जहाँ पे पढ़ने भी जा रहे हो कॉलेज में, आई थिंक उन्होंने कहा था, राम गोपाल गोपाल दास गौर ने कहा था, आई थिंक जहाँ तक मुझे याद है। उन्होंने ये बताया था कि जहाँ भी तुम पढ़ने जा रहे हो अपने कॉलेज में, तुम्हारे पास एक रूम है, हाँ मेरे पास एक सिंगल रूम है, वही तुम्हारी केव है। एंड दैट्स इट। You don't actually need to go to a cave, right? You need a place where you can experience solitude and silence. And that's it. कितना मतलब कॉन्सेप्ट है, सिंप्लीफाइड कॉन्सेप्ट है एक्चुअली, पावरफुल कॉन्सेप्ट। Many varieties of flowers are found in abundance in these mountains. Those with a poetic imagination say that viewed from the snow-covered mountain peaks, these slopes laden with flower beds look like a magnificent vase of flowers which a fully prepared disciple would reverently present to his Gurudeva. I would sit next to these natural flower beds and gaze into the sky, searching for their gardener. देखिए मतलब बहुत अच्छी बात है ना। जैसे कि हमारे स्पिरिचुअल टीचर जो हैं वो हमको बताते हैं कि अगर आप एक फ्लावर को भी ढंग से अगर देखोगे तो उसमें कार्बन है, हाइड्रोजन है, नाइट्रोजन है, ऑक्सीजन है और ट्रेस ट्रेस मिनरल्स है, राइट। ये चार पांच चीजें हैं, इसी से फ्लावर बनाया, राइट। वो ये बताते हैं कि अगर एक साइंटिस्ट को बहुत सारा पैसा भी दे दिया जाए या टीम ऑफ साइंटिस्ट को, वो इन चार या पांच मिनरल्स का यूज करके फ्लावर नहीं बना सकते हैं, बिकॉज ऑफ द sheer ब्यूटी ऑफ द फ्लावर। यू स्टार्ट टू आइडियली थिंक कि फ्लावर बनाया किसने है, इतना सुंदर फ्लावर किसने बनाया हो सकता है एक्चुअली। देयर हैज टू बी somebody who constructed this flower from the minerals, right? So beautiful, gives a fragrance. It's amazing actually. Alive, blooms, opens up. It's a dynamic thing, right? So the more and more you contemplate on it, मतलब आप जितना उसके बारे में ध्यान लगाते हैं या आप जितना उसके रियलिटी तक पहुंचने की कोशिश करते हैं, उतना ही ट्रुथ आपको रिवील किया जाता है, उस लेवल का ट्रुथ। इसीलिए बोलते हैं कि मेडिटेशन इज द पाथ ऑफ सेल्फ रियलाइजेशन। आप जितना अपने आप को जानने की कोशिश करते हैं स्पिरिचुअल पाथ के ऊपर, उतना ही आपको स्पिरिचुअल पाथ पे फॉरवर्ड लीड किया जाता है। अगर आप अपने आप को जानने की ज्यादा कोशिश नहीं करेंगे ऑन द पाथ, तो आपको ज्यादा आगे लीड भी नहीं किया जाएगा, बिकॉज यू नॉट ट्राइंग हार्ड इनफ। सिंपल इज दैट, राइट। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आप कोई भी एक सब्जेक्ट ले लीजिए, अगर आप उसमें और ज्यादा अंदर जाके यू स्टार्ट टू स्टडी डीपली, तो आपका जो अंडरस्टैंडिंग होगा वो प्रोफाउंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग होगा, बाकी सब लोगों से कहीं ज्यादा प्रोफाउंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग होगा आपका, राइट। पर अगर आप सुपरफिशियली मतलब खाली पढ़ लेंगे, हाँ ठीक है चलो एवरीथिंग इज फाइन, तो अंडरस्टैंडिंग भी उस लेवल का ही होगा खाली। इसलिए एक बहुत अच्छा जो प्रिंसिपल जो कि अलग अलग योगीज ने बताया है वो ये है, सेल्फ इंक्वायरी का, या फिर नोइंग द नोअर का। सेल्फ इंक्वायरी या नोइंग द नोअर का मतलब ये होता है कि आप बार बार अलग अलग फॉर्म्स में ये पूछिए कि मैं कौन हूँ, मैं एक्चुअली मैं कौन हूँ, जो मैं बॉडी में रह रहा हूं मैं कौन हूं। और ये बार बार पूछने के बाद धीरे धीरे क्या होता है कि एक अवेयरनेस डेवलप होनी शुरू हो जाती है ऑफ द ट्रू नेचर ऑफ थिंग्स। अवेयरनेस, ये अवेयरनेस जो है आपको ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम स्टार्ट्स टू हिंट यू इन वेरियस वेज कि योर ट्रू नेचर इज नॉट दिस, इज नॉट द इमोशंस, इज नॉट द थॉट, इज नॉट इवन द माइंड, इट इज कंप्लीटली समथिंग एल्स बियॉन्ड द माइंड। तो आपको धीरे धीरे करके माइंड में स्टार्ट्स टू डॉन ऑन यू, which is I think truly remarkable. आगे चलते हैं। Among all the flowers grown in the Himalayan valleys, the most beautiful are the lilies and the orchids. Hundreds of varieties of lilies bloom after winter is over and sometimes even before snowfall. There is one variety of lily which is pink and very beautiful. It grows in June and July at a height of 8,000 to 11,000 feet and is found on the banks of the river Rudra Garo that joins Ganges and Gangotri. The same variety of lily is also under the trees at Bojabasa. The orchids in the Himalayas are more gorgeous than any other flower. They grow at a height of 4,000 to 6,000 feet. The heaviest orchid that I found was growing on an oak tree and weighed a little less than 1.5 pounds. Wow, 1.5 pounds. Huh? Some varieties of these orchids can be found in greenhouses a few miles from Kathmandu, Nepal, but many still remain undiscovered by horticulturists. During the blossoming season of orchids, the buds, in their natural obstinacy, delay blooming and sometimes take 6 to 7 days to open. Orchid flowers are amazingly beautiful and their blooming season lasts for at least 2.5 months. अगर आपको ध्यान दिख रहा होगा अभी, तो इन्होंने सबसे पहले इनका जो चैप्टर का स्ट्रक्चर है, उन्होंने पहले योगीज के बारे में बताया, अपनी थोड़ी सी अर्ली लाइफ के बारे में बताया, फिर उन्होंने बताया कि उन्होंने मतलब किस किस तरह की चीजें वहाँ पे ट्रैवल करना, खाना पीना वगैरह वगैरह। फिर वो आए अभी उनकी वैलीज या नेचर को डिस्क्राइब कर रहे हैं, वो क्लाउड्स को क्या डिस्क्राइब, अभी फ्लावर्स को कर रहे हैं डिस्क्राइब, तो ही इज पार्टिसिपेटिंग इन डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ द होल सीनरी ऑफ द प्लेस जहां वो रहे थे, राइट। आगे चलते हैं। The mountain cacti bloom suddenly in the moonlit night. They are shy to the sun's rays, and before the sun rises, their petals withdraw their blooming beauty, never to bloom again. I know of more than 25 varieties of succulents and cacti in the Himalayas, which are used for medicinal purposes. I was told that Soma creeper comes from the succulent family and grows at a height of 11,000 to 18,000 feet. Among the great variety of flowers in the Himalayas, there are more than 150 varieties of, wow, that's a complicated word, rhododendron. Rhododendron. The most striking of these species is blue and white. Pink and red varieties are common, and there is another variety which is multicolored petals. In the summer, sometimes an entire valley is laden with rhododendron flowers. So basically flowers की बात चल रही है कि कितने यूनिक किस्म के फ्लावर्स यहाँ पे हैं और किस किस हाइट पे वो पाए जाते हैं, और उनके बारे में खासियत भी क्या है वो भी बता रहे हैं। द किंग ऑफ ऑल द हिमालयन फ्लावर्स इज हिम कमल और स्नो लोटस, a very rare flower. One day, as I was wandering through the mountains, I saw a single blue himkamal, as big as a saucer, growing from between two rocks and half buried in snow. I started looking at it, and my mind entered into a dialogue with this beautiful snow lotus. I said, "Why are you here all alone? Your beauty is meant to be adored. You should give yourself to somebody, give to someone before your petals fall and return to the dust." As the brew, as the breeze blew its stem, it shook and then bent towards me, saying, "Don't you think I'm lonely being all alone?" All alone means all in one. All alone means all in one. ALONE. I enjoy these heights, the purity, the shelter of the blue umbrella above. I wanted to pick the flower and consider pulling it out and taking the whole plant to my master. I compared my own life to this lotus and said, like an irresponsible, joyous child, "What will happen to you if I crush your petals?" The lotus said, "I will be glad, for my fragrance will radiate everywhere, and the purpose of my life will be fulfilled." I pulled the lotus out by its roots and took it to my master. But he was not appreciative. He had never liked to use flowers and their fragrance except on few occasions when he instructed me to collect flowers from the forest of worship. This was the last day that I ever picked a flower. I felt that I had been depriving Mother Nature by snatching her child from her lap. Wow, that's a beautiful simile. I never picked a flower again. Beauty is to be admired, not to be used, possessed, or destroyed. That is a lovely line, no? Beauty is to be admired, not to be used, possessed, or destroyed. Beauty is to be admired and not to be used, possessed, or destroyed. Aesthetic sense develops when one starts appreciating the beauty of nature. एक काम करते हैं, let us go to internet and let us search for what is called snow lotus. Let's check. Snow lotus दिखने में कैसा होता है? स्नो लोटस जो है कुछ इस तरह का होता है। ये ब्लू कलर का तो मुझे नहीं लग रहा है देख के। दैट्स स्ट्रेंज। स्नो लोटस। हम्म स्नो लोटस, ये एक्चुअल स्नो लोटस तो नहीं है। ब्रह्म कमल, स्नो लोटस, जब ब्रह्म कमल इस तरह का होता है, ओके, इंटरेस्टिंग नो, स्नो लोटस, नाइस, समथिंग न्यू। आगे चलते हैं। एक बार स्लाइन को और पढ़ते हैं। ब्यूटी इज टू बी एडमायर्ड एंड नॉट टू बी यूज्ड, possessed or destroyed. To satisfy and fulfill my desire to be all alone, I wandered here and there, admiring nature just by being with her. Sometimes I would go down to the snowy streams and look at the ripples kicking each other as they moved forward. The rivers and streams running from the tops of the glaciers looked like many long locks of hair. The music created by the streams is quite exhilarating. I would compare the stream of life with these ever flowing streams and watch how a mass of water running toward the ocean would not leave a gap. These currents would never turn back, but another mass of water would fill the gap. There was always continuity. Those streams are like perennial flow of life. For hours, I would watch these snowy streams flowing from the glacier and waterfalls. Both banks of the streams glittered like silver on moonlit nights. Living in that part of the Himalayas where Ganges flows, I would stay seated on its rocky bank and gaze at the blue sky and the clear moon, which paled its light on the sands. I watched the twinkling lights coming from the small homes of the distant villages, and when the clouds parted, I saw the sky glittering with lamps of a million stars. This grand assembly and a long procession of the stars is beyond human imagination. Below on earth, the peaks of the Himalayas silently enjoyed this fair of stars. Some of them seemed as though they were playing hide and seek among the mountain peaks. In all directions, the mountain peaks and snowy streams were illumined with that milky light emanating from the starry multitude which I remember even today. In the evenings, mist formed a thick white quilt over the Ganges between the two ridges of snowy peaks, and before sunrise, a layer of mist would cover the Ganges like a white blanket. It seemed as though a sleeping serpent were snoring from beneath it. The rays of the rising sun rushed to drink these holy waters as eagerly as I rushed to bath in the Ganges every morning. The mountain was crystal clear, soothing to the eyes and stimulating to the senses. अभी फ्लावर्स के बाद वो वाटर पे एंड रिवर्स पे आ गए हैं अभी, उनके उनका डिस्क्रिप्शन अभी दिया जा रहा है यहाँ पे. There are many rivers which flow from the great lake Mansarovar at the foot of the Mount Kailas. But of all the rivers which have their source in the Himalayan mountains, Ganges is unique. When the Ganges flows from its source in the glaciers of Gangotri, it carries in its water a variety of minerals which have nutritional and therapeutic value. Skin diseases are rarely found among villagers who live on the banks of Ganges. A bottle of Ganges water is kept in every home, and practically all of the villagers give it to a dying person to drink. गंगा का पानी जो है उसको बहुत पवित्र मानते हैं ना. सो बॉटल ऑफ गंगा का पानी, मतलब उसका एक पूरा बॉटल बहुत लोगों के घरों में, इंडिया में वैसे भी होता है एक्चुअली. एंड क्या बोलते हैं उसको, मेडिसिन फॉर्म में भी यूज किया जाता है. थेरेप्यूटिक वैल्यू, राइट. Next, so a glacier at the base of the Bhagirathi peaks is a source of the Ganges. बड़ा सा ग्लेशियर है. When bottled, this water does not become stagnant and bacteria do not survive in it, although they do in the water from other rivers. Long ago, sailors learned that drinking water from the Ganges carried by ships traveling from Calcutta to London did not stagnate, but water from the Thames carried by ships traveling from London to India had to be replaced by fresh water along the way. These unique chemical components and minerals of this water have been analyzed by many scientists from all over the world. Dr. Jagdish Chandra Basu, a prominent Indian scientist, analyzed the Ganges water and concluded there seems to be no other river like this anywhere in the world. Its mineral qualities have powers to cure many diseases. देखिए इसका ना एक एग्जाम्पल और भी है. खाली सिर्फ इसकी बात नहीं है, मतलब खाली गेंजेस की बात नहीं है. एक इसके पीछे एक जनरल प्रिंसिपल है एक्चुअली. वो ये है कि जिस भी वाटर में पावरफुल स्पिरिचुअल एनर्जी होती है वो क्वालिटी में डिग्रेड नहीं होता. ये कैसे पता? क्योंकि एक बार आई थिंक किसी एक वैसाख वाले इवेंट में बहुत सारा बॉटल ऑफ वाटर जो है वो ब्लेस किया गया था, नॉर्मल बिस्लरी बॉटल वाटर, बाय अ नोन स्टूडेंट ऑफ आवर स्पिरिचुअल टीचर. जब वो ब्लेस किया गया था 2 साल के बाद सेम डेट्स की एक नॉर्मल बॉटल और एक ब्लेस बॉटल को जब कंपेयर किया गया था, तो ब्लेस बॉटल की जो क्वालिटी थी एनर्जी की वो बिल्कुल एज अ फ्रेश वाटर की थी, कि अभी भी मतलब निकाला है. और नॉर्मल वाला वाटर की क्वालिटी काफ़ी ख़राब हो चुकी थी फ्रॉम द ड्रिंकिंग स्टैंड पॉइंट. सो इसलिए आप देखोगे कि उसमें ना एक्सपायरी होती है एक्चुअली. सो देयर इज वेरी यूनिक प्रॉपर्टी ऑफ बीइंग कंसील्ड, being imbued with spiritual energy. So that is जो है was observed in this particular case. So that's why जब when you talk about Himalayan water, या जो कि एक ग्लेशियर से निकलता है ऊपर से, वहां पे मैसिव स्पिरिचुअल एनर्जी की एंकरिंग है. उसका जो इफेक्ट होता है वो वाटर को डिग्रेड नहीं होने देता इवन ओवर लॉन्ग लॉन्ग पीरियड ऑफ टाइम. से गंगा जल को हमारे घरों में रखा जाता है लंबे लंबे समय के लिए एज अ क्योर ऑल और एज अ ब्लेस्ड वाटर, और एज की इसको रखोगे तो घर में प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगी. या फिर कभी कभी बोलते हैं कि गंगा जल को छिड़कने से भी मतलब द पीपल गेट हील्ड एंड थिंग्स लाइक दैट, या उससे ब्लेसिंग्स मिलती हैं. इस ये मान्यताएं वहीं से आती हैं. When the Ganges come down to the plains, however, it is fed by many polluted streams and rivers, and the merits of its water are lost. Some of the villagers throw the bodies of the deceased into the Ganges, believing that by doing so, the souls of their loved ones will go to heaven. Personally, I don't approve of polluting the water and then drinking the same water and calling it holy. I was instructed by my master not to drink from or bath in the water of the Ganges with any idea that by doing so my sins would be washed off. He taught me the philosophy of karma and said, one has to reap the fruits of his karma. The law of karma is inevitable and is accepted by all the great philosophies of the world. As you sow, so shall you reap. देखिए साफ साफ इसमें ये लिखा हुआ है कि गंगा का पानी पीने से आपके पाप नहीं धुलने वाले, नहीं धुलने वाले पाप. Learn to inform your duties, learn to perform your duties skillfully without aversion or attachment. And do not believe that anything can wash off your bad karma. Taking a bath in a river and making pilgrimages from one shrine to another will not free you from the bondage of karma. Such a belief is only superstition and has no logic. आपको पता है ना एक टाइम पे स्वामी रामा was I think was शंकराचार्य या क्या थे एक टाइम पे. हाँ एक टाइम पे शायद शंकराचार्य थे, राइट? आई थिंक सो. हाँ ही वॉज शंकराचार्य ऑफ Karvitipuram, I think. Anyway, so what I was trying, like spiritual leader of a specific sect of people, right? Of the Hindu religion. Now, Swami Rama, of course, he had very big duty to carry and so on, so on, so. but that is not a problem. The idea is that you have you have sorry, 1 second. So many people in India believe that once we go to the Ganga and we take a wash and all of that, our sins will wash away. हमने जो भी कर्म किए होंगे इस जन्म में या पिछले जन्म में वो धुल जाएंगे. नहीं होता है ऐसा. ऐसा लॉजिकली भी नहीं हो सकता, बिकॉज कर्मा जो है वो बिना लेसन लर्न किए, बिना उसके लिए प्रयास या मेहनत किए ऐसे कैसे धुल जाएगा ना. वो मतलब फंडामेंटल इम्पॉसिबिलिटी है. बट हाउएवर, गंगा में नहाने से क्या होता है कि आपकी जो बॉडीज होती हैं, स्थूल शरीर, फिजिकल बॉडी, प्राणमय शरीर, एथरिक बॉडी, या इसको एनर्जी बॉडी भी बोलते हैं, काम कोशा आपका जो होता है, या काम शरीर एस्ट्रल बॉडी, मनोमय कोशा आपका मेंटल बॉडी, ये क्लीन हो जाती हैं. टू सम डिग्री क्लीन होती हैं वॉश लेने से, क्योंकि वाटर में स्पिरिचुअल एनर्जी इम्प्रेग्नेटेड है ऑलरेडी. सो कुछ हद तक ये क्लीन हो जाती हैं, कुछ हद तक. मतलब आपको बार बार वॉश लेना पड़ेगा इनको सब्सटैंशियली क्लीन क्लीन करने के लिए, वो भी प्रेयर एंड रिचुअल के साथ. इट्स ऑलमोस्ट लाइक डूइंग प्राणिक हीलिंग ऑन योर सेल्फ, या फिर प्राणिक साइकोथेरेपी ऑन योर सेल्फ. बट बिकॉज प्राणिक हीलिंग इज वेरी पॉइंटेड एंड वेरी शार्प एंड वेरी एक्यूरेट, you know exactly what you're doing, right? जबकि आप बात करोगे उसकी क्या बोलते हैं, गंगा में स्नान की, तो मुझे पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस मेरा कोई भी नहीं है उसमें. होगा भी तो मैं बहुत छोटा बच्चा हूँ उस टाइम पे, तो मुझे पता भी नहीं है. बट या आई थिंक, बट दिस इज द इक्विवेलेंट ऑफ दैट. आई डोंट थिंक इट विल वॉश योर कर्मा अवे. दैट इज नॉट लाइकली. इट्स ऑलमोस्ट नॉट लाइकली. और कर्मा तो मतलब बहुत ऊपर के एवोल्यूशन तक भी चल रहा होता है, तो उसमें तो आप एक बार में ऐसे कैसे वॉश हो जाएगा ना, मतलब सिर्फ सोचने वाली बात है. एक होता है विश्वास. विश्वास डजंट मीन साइंस. विश्वास क्या, ठीक है, आपका है विश्वास, अच्छी बात है, वेरी वेरी गुड, बस ठीक है. उसका मतलब ये नहीं कि वो स्पिरिचुअली साइंटिफिकली वो करेक्ट हो गया. मान्यता है, ठीक है, मान्यता है, बट दैट डजंट मीन इट्स करेक्ट. मेक सेंस? या, लेट्स गो फॉरवर्ड. The rivers flowing from the Himalayas enrich the soil of India and feed more than 600 million people today. Yet some call these mountains poor. Writers dare say that Himalayas are economically disappointing, having few mineral deposits and being unable to support enterprises on a large scale. I agree with them. Economically, these mountains are not rich. They are spiritual mountains and provide for the renunciates. You know, Vairagis, right? Not for the materially wealthy. Those who have tried to explore the riches of Himalayas from an economic viewpoint have met with failure, and those who will undertake such ventures in the future will be similarly disappointed. Himalayan villages have not received their share of modern education, technology, and medicine, even though the Himalayas are the reservoirs for the drinking and irrigation water for the whole of India. Indian planners are unwise in not placing greater emphasis on this important resource. However, the Himalayan inhabitants prefer things to remain as they are. Leave us alone without exploitation, just be grateful and respect us from distance, are the words I hear from many villagers of the Himalayas. Good, no? Cool people. The economy of villages is supported by the nearby tiny terraced fields where barley, wheat, and lentils are grown. Livestock includes buffaloes, sheep, cattle, ponies, and goats. The villagers living in Punjab and the Kashmir Himalayas, in the Kumayu and the Garhwal Himalayas, and in the Nepal and the Sikkim Himalayas have many common characteristics. They are poor but honest. वैसे पुअर का मतलब होता है कि फ्रॉम द वर्ल्डली स्टैंड पॉइंट उनके पास बहुत बेशुमार पैसा नहीं है, बट यू नो ऑनेस्टली इफ दे लिव अ वेरी गुड लाइफ एंड उनकी हेल्थ अगर हम लोगों से अच्छी है, So health-wise, they're not very poor. If they have a good time in the life, तो relationship-wise, they're not very poor. You know, अगर उनके पास रोजमर्रा के काम करने के लिए enough पैसा है, उनका काम आराम से हो रहा है, तो they're not really poor actually. They are poor but honest. They do not steal or quarrel. In the villages, high in the mountains, no one even locks his house. Locks are not needed. There are places of pilgrimage there. If you go to a shrine high in the mountains and drop your purse on the path, it will still be there when you come back weeks later. No one will touch it. They consider it disrespectful to touch somebody else's things without permission. Why should we need someone else's things? They will ask. There is no greed, or their needs are few. They do not suffer from materialistic insanity. कितना अच्छा word है. Materialistic insanity. Materialistic insanity. The villagers are dependent on the plains only for a salt and for oil to burn their lamps. These village societies are less corrupt and most others in the world than most in the world because of the people's simple, honest, and gentle habits. Life here is calm and peaceful. The people don't know how to hate anyone. They don't understand hatred. अभी basically वहां से निकल के हम आ गए लोगों के ऊपर, people के ऊपर. Now we're talking about people, and I think that is thing for the next two or three paragraphs also. They don't understand hatred. These people don't want to come down to the plains. When they leave the mountains, they do not feel comfortable around the people of the plains when with their many tricks and games and pretenses. In the mountains, in the mountain areas most influenced by modern culture, however, lying and stealing have begun to occur much more frequently. मतलब यह है कि अगर उन माउंटेन रेंजेस में रहने वाले उन लोगों को जिनको की हवा लग गई है मॉडर्न कल्चर की, उन जगहों पे लाइंग एंड स्टीलिंग जो है उसकी शुरुआत हो चुकी है, बाकी जगहों पे नहीं हुई है, जो कि अभी पूरे कट ऑफ है, वहां पे कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. Modern society is considered to be advanced in culture, but it is not genuine. It is cultured like a cultured pearl. Few value genuine pearls today. See, modern society is considered to be advanced and cultured, but it is not genuine. It is cultured like a cultured pearl. Only few value genuine pearls today. The modern human being has weakened himself and his human nature by cultivating it, by culturing it again and again, losing touch with nature and reality. In modern culture, we live for showing off to others. Wow, it's such a perfect one. In modern culture, we live for showing off to others, not for serving others. Wow, powerful as crazy. In modern culture, we live for showing off to others, not for serving others. But if you go to the mountains, no matter who you are, the first thing they will ask you are, have you taken your food? Do you have a place to stay? Anybody there will ask you these things, whether you are a friend or a stranger. कितनी अच्छी बात है ना? The people of the Garhwal and Kumayu mountains are intelligent, cultured, and hospitable. Kangra Valley art and the Garhwal art are renowned for the unique pen and color work. Education in some of these mountain communities is better than in many other parts of India. The priests of the different communities know so much about the astrology mingled with Tantrism that it sometimes surprises travelers from the plains. The people here lead simple lives close to nature. They live in beautiful wooden houses and weave their own clothes. In the evening, they assemble for chanting and sing their folklore in beautiful melodies. They dance in a group and sing folk songs, which are harmonious and moving. The mountain drummers are excellent, and bamboo flutes and jaw harps are used by shepherds and school children. As the girls and boys go to the mountains to fetch grass for cattle, and wood for fuel, they spontaneously compose and sing poems. The children have their own way of enjoying life by playing hockey and soccer. Reverence for parents and elders is one of the striking features in the Himalayan culture. Most of the trees, I think trees पे आ गए मेरे ख्याल में जहाँ तक मुझे लग रहा है. Most of the trees which grow at the heights of 4,000 to 6,000 feet are oaks, pines, and deodar, which means fir trees of various kinds. In the high mountains, Bhojpatra grows and supplies bark paper, which the villagers use to record their experiences, their ways of worship, and the usage of the herbs. Every villager knows something about the herbs, which are useful for many purposes in daily life. All the villages from Kashmir to Punjab, Nepal, and Sikkim have a reputation for providing strong and healthy soldiers for the Indian Army, which is very, very true. True, by the way, there is actually a Punjab regiment, there is a Gorkha regiment from Nepal. Sikkim, I'm sure there is something, I don't know what is the name of this regiment, by the way, but these all have places specific. What happens is that many people who come from these places, they choose their home regiments in that sense, like I know a couple of officers who are from Assam and they chose Gorkha Rifles, right? So like there's familiarity, but I know those people also who come from south of India and who choose, say, regiments of north of India, because though they may be from South India, but their heart attachment is towards north. Somehow their heart feels more at home when they talk about northern regiments. So, like when my dad was in the army, there was we would stay at Indian Military Academy in Dehradun, and my dad would say ki the first, I think, 5 or 10 officers of to be commissioned officers, always in their, just before they actually pass out, they're supposed to fill a form in which they are required to mention which branch will they join. Infantry, artillery, armored, engineers, signals, blah, 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 right? So the first 5 or 10 of them almost always choose infantry. Infantry is supposed to be ideally the bravest of them all, and it requires a certain degree of sacrifice in terms of living also, because that these are the guys who are posted in the borders all the time, right? So infantry has many regiments. So you choose whichever one you want to choose, but infantry is the one which these guys mostly choose, and it doesn't matter whether you're from there or not. If you are elite, you have it in your blood, you will choose that, something like that. This is why the tagline of the Indian Army is, "Do you have it in you?" It's a very powerful tagline, and I think I love it too damn much. All right. The Himalayan community which lives in the mountains of Pakistan is called Hunza. There they eat meat, but the community that lives in the Indian part of the Himalayas is called Hamsa and is vegetarian. Hamsa means swan. Remember, I told you Hamsa and Paramahamsa are third and the fourth initiations, right? Hamsa is symbolically represented by somebody who can separate milk from water, which means the perception is so highly accurate that you can pick out one little lie from a whole story. This part of them just is not accurate. That is when intuition is working very closely and clearly, which means your perception, your accuracy in perception is spiritually guided or spiritually impulsed. It's not just mental perception only now. You have mixture of soul perception mixed with a very highly trained mind. That is how a Hamsa is usually described. So Hamsa means swan and is frequent symbol in Indian mythology. The swan is said to have the power of separating and drinking only the milk out of a mixture of milk and water. Similarly, this world is a bad mixture of two things, good and the bad. The wise person selects and takes the good and leaves the bad. Beautiful, beautiful. Throughout these mountains, Shakti worship is prominent, and in every village there are at least one or two small chapels. Shakti. The sages, however, travel and do not form communities such as the villagers do. These sages are treated very nicely by the villagers and are given free food and shelter. They come from different cultures and parts of the country and world and live in caves, under trees, or in tiny thatched huts. These dwelling places are considered temples and are situated outside the villages. There is always at least one wise man and sometimes several staying where those bare necessities are maintained by the villagers. When any wandering sadhu or renunciate or a yogi or a sage comes by, the villagers freely offer whatever food they have. They enjoy entertaining guests and easily establish friendship with them. As I traveled throughout the Himalayas, I did not enjoy staying with the villagers or the officers stationed here and there, but preferred to stay in the hermitages, caves, and thatched huts of these sages. I think we'll pause here for now because the chapter is a little bit more. Yeah. Let's pause here for now. Let's do a closing prayer, everyone. Be aware of the heart chakra here and the crown chakra here. To the Supreme God, to the Great Divine Father, Great Divine Mother, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for your great blessings. Thank you to our spiritual teacher, to all the spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great, great ones. We very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings. Thank you so much. Thank you.